I've now read all 12 of John Marr's published books, so time to rank them. I'd like to preface this by saying that I haven't rated a single John Marr's book under 3.75 stars. He's one of my absolute favorite authors, and I think that you guys should all read his books. Her Last Move is available on Kindle Unlimited. It follows DS Becca Vincent as she looks for a serial unaliver with the help of a police super recognizer named Joe Russell. So this book was fast-paced and high stakes and had cliffhangers on every page and was super twisty. I just didn't understand the motives of the serial unaliver. I thought that they were quite silly and I just wanted more depth to it. For that reason, Her Last Move gets 12th place as my least favorite John Marr's book. The Good Samaritan is available on Kindle Unlimited, and it follows Laura, who works at a call center for people who are losing hope about life, and unfortunately, she's not so good at her job because she actually tries to convince these people to themselves. I think Laura is one of the most diabolical and disgusting characters I've ever come across in a book. However, she made the book very interesting. Like any John Marr's book, this book is incredibly written. It's really well thought out and intricate. However, it is the most straightforward plot line of any John Marr's book, in my opinion. I just like my thrillers to be a little bit more twisty, so for that reason, The Good Samaritan gets 11th place. The Vacation follows a cast of characters that are all staying at a California hostel that all have secrets they'd like to keep hidden. This book is similar to how he writes his near-future dystopian thrillers like The One and The Marriage Act, but this one is just a straight-up thriller, but it has multiple POVs and is quite twisty. This is one of the first books I read that had a ton of characters, and so with the jumping POVs, I will admit that I got kind of lost, and I think that really affected my rating. I think if I read The Vacation today, I would like it a little bit more than I originally did, but I'm still giving it 10th place. When You Disappeared is available on Kindle Unlimited, and it follows a wife named Catherine and her husband named Simon, and one day Simon goes out for a run and never comes back. But he's actually halfway around the world living his best life. He's not missing, and he comes back after 25 years, and we get to hear the story of why he disappeared. I'll be the first to admit this book took me a second to get into. I just didn't really care about Simon. I thought he was a jerk that just left his wife, but as the story progressed, it got a little bit more wild, and the ending completely blew my mind. This book was set up perfectly. It was so intricate and multi-layered. I did not know at all where it was going, and I definitely think that you guys should read it. Because it took a second for me to get into it, When You Disappeared gets 9th place. The Marriage Act follows 4 couples who are living under government surveillance that audits them on how they interact with each other and their arguments and just anything that goes into their relationship. This is one of John Marr's near-future dystopian thrillers that follows a wide cast of characters and flip-flops POVs the entire time. Because there are multiple characters, we get flip-flopping POVs from each of the people involved in the story, and they end on cliffhangers every time. It's so addictive, and it's a wild ride with a very intricate plot and is super multi-layered and a lot of fun. Marriage Act gets 8th place just because I liked it a little bit more than the previous books I talked about and a little bit less than the ones I'm going to talk about next. The Minders follows 5 characters who are given new lives and new identities and have chips implanted in their brains with government secrets that they're trying to hide from enemy countries. This near-future dystopian thriller was my most recent John Marr's book, and it completely captivated me. Like any John Marr's book, there's cliffhangers at the end of every chapter that make it impossible to put down. This book had me on the edge of my seat and holding my breath the entire time. It was fast-paced, it was high stakes, and it was wildly twisty. I do have to say it was a little too James Bondy for me with like the government intel, but beyond that, I absolutely loved it, so it gets 7th place. The Passengers follows 8 people who get into self-driving cars and are notified that they are about to drive to their death. There are hidden cameras in these cars and they're being live streamed to the public, and they have to vote on which person they want to save. I loved how fast-paced and high-stakes this book was. I loved the moral dilemma of having to choose who to save, and I really didn't know who to root for the entire time. This may be an unpopular opinion, but I didn't love the ending of this book. I just wanted it to give more, so for that reason, I give this book 6th place. Keep It in the Family is available on Kindle Unlimited, and it follows the couple Mia and Finn, and they just bought a house that they're renovating, and Mia falls pregnant, and then they discover something gruesome in their attic, and Mia decides she's going to get to the bottom of what happened in this house. Dare I say this is John Marr's most dark and twisted book, because I really think it is. This book has so many dark secrets. It's absolutely wild and twisted, and you just will have your jaw on the floor after you're done reading this one. Only reason this one gets 5th place is because I like the other 4 books that I'm about to talk about a little bit more, and I also guessed the ending of this book, like, kind of early on. The Stranger in Her House is available on Kindle Unlimited, and it follows Connie, who moves back home to take care of her elderly mother named Gwen. The local church has sent over a handyman named Paul, and Paul is a little bit too comfortable in Gwen's home, and so Connie grows really suspicious of him. Connie thinks that Paul is trying to ice her out of her mom's life completely. Is she right? This one completely stumped me. I had no idea where this was going to go, but once the first twist happened, I simply couldn't put it down. I had to know what was going to happen. It's super twisty and interesting, and so it gets 4th place. The Family Experiment follows a cast of characters who have agreed to be in a live stream competition where they raise AI children in the metaverse. The people watching this show get to vote people out, or they get voted out on their own by no longer being alive. This book truly felt like an episode of Black Mirror. It was so incredible. I read it as an arc, and I was just dying to talk about it with somebody because it completely blew my mind. Like John Marr's other near-future dystopian thrillers, we get multiple POVs and flip-flopping through their POVs, and it gets wilder and wilder as the story progresses, and the ending, I would have never guessed it. The Family Experiment gets 3rd place as my favorite John Marr's book. Okay, 2nd and 1st place, honestly, they're both 1st place. I can't decide between What Lies Between Us, which is available on Kindle Unlimited, and The One. What Lies Between Us follows Nina and Maggie is Nina's mother, and she's chained in her attic. Throughout this book, we're trying to figure out why Nina would do this to her mother, or what her mother did to deserve to be chained in the attic. Not even in my wildest dreams could I have imagined where this book was going to go, and it went so dark and twisty, and I absolutely loved it. I have no notes. I know a lot of people didn't really like the ending of this book, but I personally loved it, so it's tied for 1st. The One follows a cast of characters that have been DNA matched to their soulmates, which sounds like the perfect thing, right? Except it's not, because some of these people are terrible, and some of them are married, and some of them are on the way to their own demise. All of John Marr's near-future dystopian thrillers can be read as standalones, but they do interconnect, and this was the first one that was published, so I think you should read it first. This is one of those books that you pick up and then kick yourself for not reading sooner. It's absolutely incredible. You guys should definitely check this book out immediately if you haven't already. John Marr's is the king of twisty books with cliffhangers on every chapter, and this one is so incredible, and that is why it ties for 1st place as my favorite John Marr's book.